Thank you all for coming. My name is Chris Tracy. I'm a Senior Project Manager at the Boston Redevelopment Authority. We are here for a public meeting in regards to the Parcel 9 Haymarket Hotel proposal, which is currently under BRA review for a planned development area. I'll explain more about that in a moment. I want to acknowledge some of my colleagues in government. We have Maria Lanza from Mayor Walsh's Office of Neighborhood Services, Kathy Carangello from City Council Sal Martinez's office, Patrick Wyans from State Rep Aaron Mikeowitz's office. I don't think I'm missing anyone else. And I want to acknowledge Matt Conti from the NorthEndWaterfront.com, who will be filming the meeting tonight as well. So I'm going to run through some introduction pieces, then we're going to hand it over to the proponent. I'm going to ask that they introduce their entire team here tonight. I ask that you please work with us and be patient and let them run through the entire presentation before opening up to questions and answers. We have the room till 8:30, and we'll take all questions and comments that you may have until 8:30. If something comes to mind later down the line that you can't think of tonight, feel free to shoot me that via email, and I will get you a response, whether it's a question for the city, a comment on the proposal, or a question for the proponent themselves. We'll get you an answer. I'm going to pass out an agenda in a moment too that will have my contact information at the bottom of it. That's the easiest way to get any information on the project going forward. I'll also pass out a sign-in sheet in a moment. Most pertinent piece of information you can leave on that sign-in sheet is your email address. That's how we'll give you an update on the project specifically moving forward. Whatever updates there are, you will receive from me via email if you sign in and leave your email legibly tonight. So again, we're here for the proposal at Parcel 9 along the Rose Kennedy Greenway. I think we all know the site well, along Blackstone Street. In October of 2014, the proponent filed a Article 80 large project review application with the city, with the BRA. At that time, we conducted our Article 80 review process. We had a few meetings with the IAG and with the public. We never brought it to our board for action because the proponent is also seeking what we call a planned development area, which is an approach to zoning that any proponent with a project in front of them over an acre of land is entitled to pursue. In the meantime, between October 2014 and now, the proponent got sign-off from the Boston Zoning Commission to allow a PDA on this site. And again, they filed the PDA application with us on April 5th. We are now under review. We have an open comment period until May 19th. So we welcome your comments tonight and going forward on what you think of the proposal. All comments that we receive go on the record, in our public record. We share them with our senior staff, the BRA. We read every letter that comes in. So please, I would encourage you to send in your letters to tell us how you feel about the project. Your letters and your comments tonight help the BRA understand the potential impacts of what's being proposed on the site. So again, while we had our Article 80 review, we did not have a PDA review. That's what we're undergoing now. If we decide to take the project forward to our board of directors with a recommendation for approval, we will concurrently take the Article 80 large project review and the PDA review to the board. The PDA will then need the approval of the Boston Zoning Commission. So there are a few layers, a few steps of process in front of the proponent if we choose to take it forward. So I just want to let that be known from the start. We had an Impact Advisory Group meeting last night at City Hall, which I know some of you were at. Thank you for those of you who came. Thank you to the IAG members who've been active participants in this for a few years now. It's helped us understand the impacts on the proposal and help us give good feedback to the proponent. So the plan you'll see tonight is different from what we saw in October 2014. And most recently, we were out here in this very room in January of this past year. We heard quite clearly from the community that they had concerns around the height along the green. The BRA significantly pushed the proponent and asked them to respond to these community concerns. I think what you'll see tonight reflects a serious undertaking by the proponent to take your concerns seriously and make significant changes. We also received a letter from the Mass Historical Commission, otherwise known as the MHC, that also had concerns around the height. So again, the BRA took that quite seriously. We pushed the proponent in a significant way, and they came back with this change. We are not showing you this change with a ringing endorsement or saying it's set in stone. What we're saying is that we're comfortable enough with the changes they come back with to show you all, solicit your feedback, solicit how the community feels about it, continue to monitor the comments that come in, then we'll make a determination on what we're going to do with it. We're going to keep working with our elected officials out here in the North End in downtown and see how they feel about it. Continue to solicit public feedback, and then we'll make a determination on what we're going to do around the date of May 19th, and then I will communicate with you all what our decision is. Okay? So I think that's all I've got from me. I'm going to hand it over to Eamon O'Mara, ask that he introduce the team, and then run through the presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge my partner Jamie Nicholson with Normandy Real Estate Partners, and Matt Pierce and Sandy Smith with Perkins and Will, the architect. If we have architectural questions as we get going, we can certainly loop them in, and Mel Schumann, our counsel for the project. It's great to be here. Thank you for hosting us again. We've been here many times, and I really appreciate the opportunity to review the project again together. I'd like to specifically also thank the IAG and the members who've put in so much time with us reviewing the project, and the BRA for a commitment to a quality public process. I believe it's important to embrace the process, and that a thorough process should improve the project. I firmly believe that has happened here. We have listened and appreciate the comments we have received and made these adjustments, which we'll show you tonight. We think it's a very exciting outcome. As Chris mentioned, when we met in January, we informed the community that the state, and we had heard feedback from the neighborhood, that we could not exceed the 55 to 65 feet in height at the site. The heights are defined in the Central Artery Joint Development Guidelines, and our project now agrees with those joint development guidelines. The revised design, we'll show you tonight, is also carefully designed to be sympathetic and compatible with the historic Blackstone block. Also, the community has consistently urged that the building be lower on the right Hanover Street side of the project. And this project, we believe, beautifully achieves all those objectives. The good news, of course, to review it from a fresh start for some of you, the project program has remained unchanged. It's still a dynamic public hotel experience that will provide many public spaces that benefit the neighborhood and its residents. Also, the project still has the great ground level retail that is complementary to Haymarket and the Boston Public Market. In fact, the ground floor, as we'll show you, has not changed at all. The project has always been viewed as the third leg of the stool for the city's goal to establish the market district, and we look forward to seeing that market district made better. Our project develops a vacant parcel that is an eyesore now, with trash facilities and the wide open on the parcel, and Blackstone Street sidewalks in poor shape. And our project will create many great hotel and other jobs, permanent jobs. Our project defines the edge of the greenway with a respectful, beautiful, and dynamic new development that complements the whole area. As we rebuild, also, as you'll see in the project, we're rebuilding the entire length of Blackstone Street to make it flush with the sidewalks, to improve Haymarket operations, and install steel bollards with utilities down both sides of the street, and restore the street art at the end of the street by Hanover Street. Also importantly, all of the commitments that we've made to the Haymarket Pushcart Association remain unchanged and firm. We have signed an agreement with the Haymarket Pushcart Association and will absolutely deliver on all the commitments we've made to HPA. Ottawa's my cell phone number. You can call me anytime you have a question, and we're going to coordinate with everybody. And anybody at Haymarket has a question about how we're going to sequence the project, we will speak with you about that and we'll coordinate together. We also just want to say finally that we take the responsibility as developer of this important project very seriously and appreciate your input tonight. So I'm going to walk you through the presentation and then we can have questions after that. Just to remind everybody of the site itself and the planned development area that encompasses our project. It's the site called Parcel 9. It's a Mass DOT parcel, and it's the length of Blackstone Street up to the face of the buildings on the opposite side of the street. That site totals 52,600 square feet in total space, and the obligations that you'll see in the presentation are the building and also all the improvements up and down Blackstone Street, which are significant, that we're funding. Some site history, which has always been an inspiration for us. Obviously, the parcel shown in the upper left in the red prior to I-93 construction, and the Blackstone block shown dotted in black to the left of that. Below that is the slide that everyone's familiar with. That was for a long period of time how Haymarket operated alongside an exit ramp, and there was a negotiating under the highway to get to the north end. And an inspirational image from 1950 of Haymarket and full bloom and activity. and the buildings along the right with the canopy as sort of an inspiration for us architecturally, and you'll see how that ties together a little later. The basic dimensions of the building are important to outline. The building is now 55 feet to 65 feet in maximum heights, 55 feet in maximum height along the Greenway, and 65 feet maximum height along Blackstone Street. And that conforms with the Central Artery Joint Development Guidelines for maximum heights at this parcel. And the importance for that was the community input about looking for those lower heights, and also for the building's compatibility to the Blackstone block and those heights. But also at the same time, there was a consistent desire from the community to have even lower heights along the right-hand side. And so what you're seeing here is an 18-foot height along the right-hand side that runs 100 feet of the building. The entire building is about 350 feet long. 100 feet of it is that low, one-story retail space. This is a nighttime view that's taken from the North End Park, approximately on the Freedom Trail, and really begins to evoke what we're achieving here, which is a market district-oriented, market-related retail, and the hotel space. And you know, you can see some of the public spaces and the terraces. You know, one of the beautiful things about hotels we've talked about is they're entirely facilities of public accommodation. So they're public buildings, publicly accessible, and establishing that ground floor relationship to Haymarket and the Boston Public Market really establishes the market district. Perkins and Will had some inspiration. We were trying to tie in architecturally what we're trying to achieve here with certain buildings, market buildings. Obviously you see some familiar ones, the Quincy Market. There's the Bruce Bowling building with some skin treatment of a sort of a different version of brick, the middle lower and the right lower building, and also introducing some of that glass, the black metal and window components that we think are a good inspiration for the architecture. And you can start to see that tying together. The goal is to, you know, establish this lower building to preserve views from the north end and to create canopies that will allow, you know, access in and out of the space, and also covering for the Haymarket operations on market days. And we took some further inspiration on how we want to have the space being, you know, maybe a little more rugged or honest in its architecture and its operational abilities, be able to flow in and out of the space for some of that, again, market-related retail uses. And this is kind of the field we're trying to achieve. As I mentioned, the ground floor, this is the ground floor. This is actually completely unchanged from the previous scheme that we had presented to you. Excuse me. The yellow areas are all retail, which is, again, market-related retail. The brown areas are specifically, this one here is the Haymarket Pushcart Association space and our trash and loading space, and then we have a separate loading for the hotel. So we think that's important because we want to be able to properly manage the Haymarket operations and the trash facilities and not have them conflict too much. So we think that's been resolved with this layout. All of these commitments with Haymarket are in writing in an agreement that we have with them that we've signed, and they're also memorialized into the Mass DOT agreements of the space. So the Haymarket space is about 1,600 square feet, and it has men's and women's bathrooms in that space dedicated to Haymarket. But you start to also see around the perimeter of the building, the canopies, the setbacks, the overhangs to really create that market feel for a ground floor experience. The lobby to the hotel is in blue on the Greenway, and is actually a relatively small lobby to get to the blue core of the elevators that go up. That lobby goes to a second floor where there's actually the reception for the hotel. And so that lobby space is actually a two-story space, which is very, you know, glassy and with a view towards the Greenway. Here's the second floor. Again, we've maintained the conference space that we've always had in the project, which is shown in this upper blue right here. We've made a commitment to the North End community to be able to coordinate with them to have use of our conference space in the hotel on an as-needed basis at no cost, and we're committed to doing that. Love the Nazaro Center, but we've got a space we'll have looking over the Greenway, and that ties the North End back into the neighborhood. You also see some of the hotel rooms, and then there's a potential for a pool. That will depend on the operation, the hotel operator. And then we've got some mission critical mechanical components that came up had to come out of the basement and go into floor 2. And this is the access to that low retail roof point. These are the hotel levels above the retail base. We do have a basement level, and as you can see, the exit tunnel for the central artery is right here. We are building over an exit ramp from the tunnel that ramps up. So part of our site is loading on top of that tunnel. We've resolved that with Mass DOT engineers. There's some back of house for hotel, and then there's some retail because there's a grade change from the surface artery down to Blackstone Street, and that allows us to actually have like a split entry retail at that corner, which we think is really a cool opportunity. These are some important views to give you a sense of, down Blackstone Street, Haymarket operation, and as it relates to our space, and the 55-foot building with 65-foot height pulling back onto Blackstone Street. Get some images to kind of give you a sense of maybe the second floor part of the hotel or the ground floor experience as being open and market-related retail kind of experience. This is an elevation of Blackstone Street itself. It's kind of a section elevation. It's a little bit of an odd angle, but you can see the length of the one-story retail point. Again, it's about 100 feet from tip to the face of the building. The central part is where we have the loading, the Haymarket storage and loading and trash facilities are all collected right about in the middle of the street. And then we have a separate loading facility for the hotel in here. Again, the intent is to have more of a brick architecture that relates to the Blackstone block. It looks more like a collection of buildings in scale that relates to Blackstone block. Here's a daytime view down Blackstone Street showing that transparency of our ground floor market-related retail and down in through Haymarket. We can talk about it in more detail, but again, the work we're doing to improve Blackstone Street and make it flush, we'll do away with for the setup of the pallets on market day, because we're going to have a flush condition. The ballers that go down will have electrical outlets that'll improve operations, and then the flush condition actually helps with cleanup and operations as well. That same view I showed you at the beginning, again, has always been an inspiration for us, and we look at the building as it relates to our new architecture, and again, the language of the canopies and what the canopies mean to what a market is, and the covering and the access into the retail. A brick building that's more modest in relation to scale of the buildings around it. And here's a view of that. And today, with the Millennium Hotel, we're now lower than the Millennium Hotel by a full level, and we think they'll like that. And here's another angle from the Greenway again to give you a sense of its presence at night. That's essentially the presentation. So, hey Bob, how are you?
Hey,
good. So that's our presentation. And if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them on any level.
And again, the project is under review. We're not showing you this saying it's completely set in stone. We're saying we're comfortable enough with the changes that they've come back with to re-engage the community and solicit your feedback. So at this time, we'll open it up for questions and comments. This is a public meeting, so we'll just go by a show of hands. I ask that you please just be respectful of each other's opinions. Otto?
As an IAG member, we were asked by the state to work with Anon and Normandy Partners. So since day one, I felt comfortable working with them. But there are two things that I really feel are problematic, and one of them being the leveling off of the sidewalk. And with the elected officials here, I would have them duly noted that it's been a long struggle down there. They had a long time to get people together. There are 4 owners on that street. They have not done anything in terms of getting that situated. I'm sure he's saying that he's going to do it from front of the business run street, on Blackstone Street to the hotel, but that's our #1 concern there, because the leveling off of the sidewalk is going to take away from business days. The other thing that we really feel is going to be a problem is the lack of parking for our trucks. Once this hotel is in place, there is no place to put our trucks. So with that said, those are the two major concerns. I would have our elected officials please take note of that, and we are very concerned about that. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Spoke to Normandy. Two things. One, obviously this has a big impact on the Blackstone block. And there is one problem in the Blackstone block which the City of Boston has, the BRA has, the owners have, and the people who operate in the block have. And that's the dumpster that exists in the middle of the block of the Blackstone block, which to me not only attracts rats, but totally discourages any tourism in that block and is a major blight to the historical significance of the block. And last night you said that your original proposal of 104,000 square feet was economically sound, and now the new project is up to 145,000 square feet. So there should be a level of profitability in there to solve that problem. And I hope you do the one of the dumpster. So I hope you are able to incorporate that dumpster somehow into the dumpsters that are in your property. The second thing I want to just ask as a point of information is the only reason the 6th floor is allowed, I assume, is because of the PDA, because the zoning is actually 55 feet. So is that assumption correct?
The PDA is their approach to zoning. If the zoning commission approves it, then it will be allowed.
But otherwise it wouldn't be, right? Or, I mean, it might be, but
I think that the joint development guidelines actually called for 65 non-blocks.
I know, but they aren't the city of
That's what's
Boston.
being enforced though, that's why they have the enforcement.
That's an interesting statement. Okay.
I'd
So
like to
you're
acknowledge-
saying that those regulations trump City Hall?
They have.
For purpose of clarity, under the existing zone, it's 55-foot height. 65 feet is something that we've asked for under the PDA process, and if the DRA and zoning commission approve that, then we will have the right to go to 65 feet, otherwise 55 feet will apply.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I just wanted to thank you.
The zoning commission is the city's agency who will ultimately say yes or no to this.
Right, I understand.
So, I want to acknowledge and thank my colleague, Lauren Sherliff, who's a senior planner with the BRA for making that. Any other questions, Bill?
No, that's it.
So Otto, can I just ask a follow-up? So, your association is opposed to the idea of the tabling.
No, we're for.
You want the tabling.
That's one of our biggest concerns. I'm just saying,
But that's part of the proposal.
this whole period, Chris, since the last meeting we had,
Right.
there have been no discussions. There's only 4 owners on that street.
Yeah.
They should have gotten together. I know there are situations there where there's going to be problems. Mr. DeNormandy has a large part of that street. Why can't they situate that before starting the project? I don't want them starting a project and then losing out on business opportunities. Every weekend, we're only 52 weeks a year. So I see that as a big, major problem.
So we'll take the time and give
Yeah.
it under consideration, but it's still very much part of the proposal.
Well, we've talked about this a bunch, and we've discussed it with, Phil's been in all the meetings, and of course, Philip Rivers from the hotel is the other
Right.
primary owner in the street, and actually has a leasehold of the parking lot behind the fence, and then Al's Pizza and Dr. Abdu.
Right.
The sidewalk is part of the scope because we want to make sure it's flush with the street once we put it together. So we're going to coordinate with those owners and cooperate with those owners. And as we've talked about, we will make sure that sequencing of the street itself, which, just as some background, the way we're going to build the building is we'll build the building first, and then we come out and you typically finish sidewalks and finish spaces out. And we're going to do the street at the end, after the building's built. It's a finished part of the process.
See, Eamon, quite honestly, that's problematic to me right there. Because what you're doing is you're starting the building and not solving the problem of the street
Well, we will solve the problem with the street.
at the end of the building.
That's just a typical sequence. I mean, if there's
So you
someone...
made it typical though. At first it was the leveling off of the street. You changed it.
we could look at changing the sequence. I mean, we've talked a lot about this on, we had the meetings, we looked at the plans and worked them out about how to do it. The sequence, and regardless of whether it comes first or second, we've also told you that come Thursday at 2 p.m., we're out of there.
And I
It's
understand
Thursday at 2
that.
p.m. all the way through Saturday, through market days. And if there's work that's partway done, there's gonna be steel plates put down
But
as well.
can you give a quick history of what's going on down there, where these tunnels are on the sidewalks and there's cabins there, and it's gonna be a problem, right?
That's where the coordination with the certain owners come in. There's certain locations under sidewalks where there's areaways. And those are not part of our scope, and we're gonna need to coordinate with those owners in those situations.
And that's what I'm saying about getting that situated first, before we get the project going.
Be situated with the other owners.
With those 4 owners, so that they know there's gonna be an expense
Yeah,
at hand.
we're planning to do that, absolutely. No question about that.
And we're legally committed to leveling off the street. Our arrangement with MassDOT requires us to do that. It would be a default, and they can't interrupt that.
I think that, just to clarify in terms of what I was saying, Robert Bracy with the Haymarket Pushcart Association, I think the concern is that you guys end up ripping up the sidewalk and then there's some sort of a beef with a building owner that causes a delay, and where the HPA is only open 52 weeks a year, any delay in the construction of that leveling off of the street is going to be problematic and interruptive to business operations within one of those 52 weeks of the year. So to get your ducks in a row ahead of time with the 4 building owners prior to digging up the street.
Absolutely. Oh, no, we agree with you entirely. We're not gonna begin the process, and whether it's...
No, you're 100%.
No, I completely agree. We've talked about this, all 3 of us, several times. There's also a transportation access plan that we have to work out with the city. There's a construction management plan we have to work out with the city as it relates to that sequencing, and all of that's very important to us also. But clearly, there's a commitment that we have. We're not going to leave a condition prior to a market day that's going to give you a problem. That's going to be part of our agreements that the city will enforce too. So, so long as the abutters are
To
cooperative,
set the record
should be
straight, I don't
fine.
think the concern is with you or your commitment or what you've said. It's just in terms of logistically with getting everybody together on the same
Yeah.
page so that there are no unforeseen issues.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll
Definitely
consider
do
the
that.
timing and logistics, and I understand you guys have agreements of your own, and whatever we agree upon as a community benefit, obviously, will go in writing into our board memo, which is a legal binding document, obviously, ultimate to it. So I want to add, we will come back to repeat questions, but is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet? That's typically how we do it. Who has a comment or question, go ahead.
I have a question about the conference center, what the dimensions of it are, and if it's written into some sort of a document that it will have to be maintained, so that 5 years from now, someone will decide that the pit isn't being used, and so the hotel is...
Yeah. I think the conference center is about 2,000 square feet in size. And maybe, Matt, you can try to interpolate some scale on that drawing, but we have specifically written into our agreements with Mass DOT under our ground lease that a meeting space will be included in the project and that it will be made available to the North End community, coordinating, I believe, through the Mazzaro Center,
Oh, okay.
as
Yeah,
the
my other
host
que- that was my other
discussion of, an event just like this. This is a perfect example. There's an event, there's a project, there's a discussion the community wants to have. This is very typical with hotels, which is one of the great things about hotels. And we say, great, use our meeting room. We'll put some coffee and some muffins in there too, and that's something we can give back. So that is written into our agreements. We're bound to that.
1,700 square feet.
And that's something we would put in writing in our board memo as well, too.
And then the North End has some wonderful little groups. There's the Rough Group, who now are organizing the dog park. And if they had, they wouldn't have to bring their dogs to this, but if they wanted a meeting space, or if they wanted a meeting space where they could have a luncheon or something that was a fundraiser, would that be appropriate?
We're open to having the community, the North End community, within reason, come to us at any time, and we'll discuss that. Was that?
I said maybe they have just the dogs and not the people.
Might be a dog-friendly hotel, you never know.
Go ahead.
I just got a quick question. For the retail space that's under that Haymarket sign, what do you envision for that?
That is, it's specifically what we've been referring to as market-related retail. Okay, now what does that mean, right?
Yeah.
it's related to the market district. And we also have very clear instruction of what we can't do. So we can't do what Haymarket does, and we're actually in our agreements with DOT. This came out of a lot of discussion with Haymarket of not selling produce at that, for that business plan. And at the same rate, we also can't compete with or duplicate what the Boston Public Market does. So we're supposed to be something different, but market related. We envision it as food and beverage uses. We envision it as some shops that are related to market. It could be, kitchenware stores. It could be coffee shop. There's definitely going to be obviously a restaurant or some component here. I've got a 212-room hotel that we've got to provide for. So it's, I think that's where we're at now. We're still evolving that.
So this hand over here.
Hi, my name's Andrew. I'm actually speaking on behalf of my friend Kevin Bogart, who lives over at Hanover Street. He couldn't make the meeting tonight because he got called into work last minute, but he wanted me to read this letter. So it goes, Mr. Tracy, I'm writing as a North End resident to express my strong support for the Haymarket Hotel proposal. As a server at the Battery Wharf Hotel, I know what it means to have a good job in the neighborhood you live in. It means I have the ability to pay the bills, play music, and raise a family in the city I love. The Haymarket Hotel will create the same opportunities for the next generation of North End residents. The development team has patiently gone through community vetting for 5 years, and now is the time to put the pencil down, the shovel in the ground, in order to make these construction and hotel jobs reality. Please approve the Haymarket Hotel immediately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go PJ.
Okay, just for the record, my name is PJ Curran. I'm here to represent the Tour Guide Association. And at the risk of repeating myself, because I have a singular concern, and that is the accommodation of tour buses. Currently, we have designated space by the city between Hanover and Clinton Street along the surface road. And that space, frankly, the opinion of every member of our association is not currently adequate, let alone compromising it with, obviously, the presence of a hotel, which is very incompatible, with tour buses pulling off and dropping off people and picking them up again. I just want to put it on the table. Obviously, Chris has been very, very receptive to my concerns, and we're just trying to keep that issue in perspective, not just in relationship to this hotel, but in relation to tourism in general. It's anecdotal, but every tour guide I talked to this year said we're having a banner year in Boston. We're enjoying great growth in the tourism industry. And every driver who comes to Boston is challenged by their ability to move around, to stay away from Stoller Drive and Memorial Drive and places like that, but also their ability to park and stop and load and unload. Not quite sure how we compare to other cities, but we're certainly not the leader in accommodating tour buses. And of course, I don't think I have to tell anybody in this room how strategically important the surface road is, because it sits smack in the middle of the Freedom Trail. And of course, Quincy Market and that stretch of roadway is where most tours begin, or it's a midpoint for many, many tours. It's the separation point between lunchtime and the afternoon, going into the North End to visit North Square, the monument, and the church, and then continuing on back to the skating rink to reconnect with the coach. So it's strategically extremely important. And today it's very constricted by virtue of the volume and the allocated number of spaces, and the fact that, frankly, on Friday and Saturday we have a lot of problems trying to get coach space, because a lot of people who visit the Haymarket on Friday and Saturday, they steal those spots. So, I tell coaches all the time, lean on that horn, get that person out of there. If there's somebody sitting there, we're pretty effective at doing that. But it's a big issue, and it's not going to go away, obviously. And it's a lovely looking structure, obviously. I mentioned the Eamon earlier. I certainly like it a lot better than the last one. But I'm not here to take position on the presence of a hotel versus whatever else. I'm here to express our concern on behalf of the association on the challenge of stopping on the surface road, finding a spot for a coach, unloading 52 people in a reasonable period of time, and then of course they have to move on and over to Chelsea Street in Charlestown and come back and find a spot to pick that group up an hour or an hour and a half later. One other quick small point, Eamon. Another challenge, of course, as we all know, is restrooms in Boston. So I'm curious about the available space on the restrooms that are designed in. It says it's in the Haymarket space. Is there a possibility that that's available on the non-pushcart days to the public, or is it a big restroom space or small, or?
Well, the restrooms in the Haymarket space are within their leasehold space, so that's theirs.
Okay,
that's they have locks to that, and that's their space. So that's that. We have public bathrooms on the second floor of the hotel. Okay.
You probably don't want to announce that to coaches or kids.
Again, it goes back to the beauty of a hotel program, their
Sure.
public uses. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the Langham, you just can kind of walk right in there. And so we currently programmatically have public men's with bathrooms on the second floor. And the Haymarket space is Haymarket's. It's not ours, it's theirs.
Got it.
I've spoken to PJ. We're going to continue to work with BTD and work with your association and the proponents.
Yes, we'll coordinate.
Take that in, Phil.
I'll let Phil go first.
Phil DeNorm. I'm sorry, Phil Frederick.
I'll let him.
For parking of the coaches, what about the next block down, the Clinton Street garage? Is that a possibility?
You're currently parked there as well, right? In front of the garage?
Right now we're between Hanover and Clinton, so the Dock Square garage, that's an active parking area for the
Well, this
coaches.
is rather wide parking sidewalk right now. I'm sure they could do a curb cut and make it a little bit easier for. Plus, it's not it's a solid brick wall anyway. You're not blocking anything for anybody wants to see.
But buses are there anyway.
PJ,
Yeah.
do you have 3 or 4 buses that park on that parcel?
Yeah. Well.
You know, I think there are like a total of 8 spaces in the 2 blocks.
So it's 4 and 4.
I think it's about 4 and 4. I could be wrong on that. I'm not positive. But what I can tell you is that, and of course, those of you, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the problem because coaches will drop and move, but a lot of coaches won't always do that very quickly. Now, we always encourage them to drop and go because we don't want problems with the city or the police, you know. And we obviously want the bus behind that person to be able to do the same thing. But that's a very congested stretch of the surface road right there between North and Hanover. I'm not sure, but it might be narrower than North and Clinton, is it? It couldn't be. So anyway, it's a constricted space. And of course, when a bus backs into a spot, it's a complex parallel parking job. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of space. So traffic comes to a dead stop in that stretch of roadway right there. So really what I'm arguing for is more attention by the city and a bigger overall solution, because even without a hotel, it's not a great situation.
City Hall Plaza.
Solve one problem.
We sat with BTD in 2014 when the issue was originally brought up. You know, some time has passed, so I think we need to revisit that internally. We'll certainly bring you into the conversation.
Thank you very much.
2 things. 1, Eamon has asked me to acknowledge my support. I support.
All right. I think he said hallelujah over the cell phone.
However,
That was tough.
I support the revised design. However, I still have an issue with what's going to go on in the low-rise market building. If I understand it correctly, the PDA will be proposed, or in the PDA as it will be proposed, that will be described as general retail. And I think that is inappropriate, and I have some documents to back up the inappropriateness. The first is the BRA's Greenway district planning study use and development guidelines, which say, market uses on the ground floor of parcels 7 and 9 will complement the Haymarket and reinforce Hanover Street as the primary spine of the market district and crossroad to the north end. That is market, not general retail. The next thing is the RFP to which this developer responded had some schematics in it. Concept number 1, cross-section, shows this area designated market use. Concept number 2, cross-section, shows this area designated market use. By the way, I will attach these to my comment letter, but I want to get this into the public conversation. There's also a schematic elevation which designates this as low market shed. Finally, in the specs that were part of the RFP to which the bidders responded, the specs are not paginated, but it's under the section entitled Parcel 9 in the Market District Development Guidelines. It says, the design of the market hall itself should, be simple and functional, conveying its purpose, the sale of fresh food at accessible prices. So please, do not permit general retail to be designated for the low-rise market hall.
So we'll take it under consideration, but I think Lauren did some homework on this.
I totally agree with you, Victor. I don't think we should just have a blanket necessarily general retail as part of still BRA reviewing it. But I would also point back to the Parcel 9 and Market District Development Guidelines. Further on, it does talk about uses. And it says that they should reinforce the character of the Market District and the Blacksmith Block. Specifically on the ground floor, which is in the second or third page, it kind of goes into an explanation saying that the remainder of the ground floor, obviously beyond the hotel uses, should be compatible with the entire Market District planning done to date, including additional food-related retail or restaurant spaces consistent with HPA operations and the proposed public market on the ground floor process.
What are you reading from that? What
These
page,
are the BRA guidelines that you also referenced that went into the RFP that Matt issued. So as far as we're concerned...
Is there a page number on yours?
No, because I printed these out. These are the copy that I wrote them from. But as far as, we're concerned, market-related retail is something we're comfortable with. And, it's obviously also in their restrictions for the property about what they have to do. We can be, we'll take a little bit more of a look at what the language is in the PDA, but I don't think that market hall is what we're going for here, rather market-related retail.
Well, I would like to say to the public that part of this is protection of the businesses existing now. Why should there be restaurants and bars where there are restaurants and bars around the corner on Marshall Street, on Union Street, the Union Oyster House? There are restaurants a few steps away in the West End. I would urge that the function be market.
Thank you, Victor. Of course, we'll take it all into consideration.
I've been part of this process for a long time, and if I may summarize a little bit, what I've noticed to be a strong feeling from Victor from the North End. Previously, it was not so much my personal concern, but it became very obvious that that was the concern. And I think the word being used is general retail and whatnot, but I think Victor, your main concern is, or at least it was, a restaurant bar with liquor license. I think to summarize it a little bit to make the conversation clearer, I think the concern, your concern and other North End residents' concern was specifically the liquor and restaurant business.
Well, it was that the BRA has designated it as a market district, and the third leg, as Eamon, the phrase used last night, was the market in the low-rise building.
Yes, but I understand, but in order to help a little bit Eamon too, because this has been a long process till now, it would be helpful if the constituents here, if the people would feel directly affected, if they had a little bit of a laundry list kind of thing of saying, this would be okay, this is fine, this is not fine, you know, then BRA, the city, the rest will have to make a decision. But let me ask you, is there, for example, ice cream parlor, is that okay? Or a bar, is that okay? I mean, if you could give him a little bit of, I mean, I think at this point, that a little bit of direction maybe would save a lot of time and energy to kind of try to, instead of being so general about retail, because retail kind of encompasses everything, to say a little bit, you know, this is something that we really don't wish to be, then you can argue it out, but to have a little bit of a specificity, I think it would be helpful to understand what is it before they spin wheels trying to make a deal with somebody and then later it's like, no, that activity is no good. It would be helpful, I think, for everyone to say, you know, this is kind of the direction that we'd like and this is the one that we really don't like. I think it will save time on your end and on the developer's end too. I mean, I'm quite
Well,
neutral
I think
about
we've
it.
had a lot of direction. I agree with Lauren. I agree with a lot of what Victor's talking about, and that's why we're here and why we call it market-related retail.
I mean, I would like to hear.
I mean, I'd also say specifically.
And I represent Faneuil here, so you know, when I go back and they ask me, you know, what is this all about? I'd like to say this is kind of the direction that is being discussed, and this is the direction which is not going to be. So you know,
There are certain things that are, we have some definition, and you know, there's things we can't do. We know we're prohibited from competing with Haymarket, sort of, and we can define what that means. We're prohibited from doing Boston Public Market and what they're trying to do. And the intent that Lauren's describing, we see that. We need to find the best solution that fits that puzzle and find the best operator and the best vision, and we will do the best vision.
Is the answer really? Nobody's got any idea right now?
No, the answer is that we're going to do market-related retail that conforms to what the BRA has said, and that it's not going to compete with Haymarket and not going to compete with Boston Public Market. We don't know the exact name of the facility or the restaurant or the ice cream shop or the facility. We don't know what that wine store is going to be called. We don't know that yet. We're trying to get entitlements for height, massing, uses, and you know.
So
but
am I to understand it's going to be food related basically?
Food related.
That seems to be
yes,
more or less.
I would say so. That's kind of I think what we envision. Okay. There might be some other components. Obviously, there's parts of the ground floor that, in fact, support Haymarket that are kind of market related in the sense because there's all this operational association with the Haymarket. I mean, I would just say that we wouldn't have taken on this project and all this effort had we not loved the idea of the market district, or had we not loved Haymarket. And it's very complicated to put all these things into this one building.
Yeah, and
so we have the same vision. We just can't tell you what it's that restaurant or what that shop's going to be called right now.
I disagree with the restaurant thing. I think that's what Victor was talking about, not having a restaurant bar type of environment in there. I think what we talked about in the past was you'd have meat markets, fish markets, flowers, peanuts, anything of that sort in there. I think that's what we discussed before, and not the type of restaurant, people drinking out late hours, and that's what he was against from the start.
I just want to say something, because I'm a resident of the North End, and there's not one voice for everybody in the North End. I think, you know, if you look at what's happening in the public market right now, and the pressures on the retail there, and the way they're going towards more prepared foods, because
It's actually not the case. They're not changing the mix. They're trying to bring in the opposite. They're trying to bring in more people that have produce, fresh vegetables, bakery. The empty spots that you see in there are not actually for prepared food vendors, despite what the article
the article in the Globe.
So the article in the Globe said that there's a pressure there for the people who want to pick up a quick lunch, who want to eat on the greenway. So maybe we can support the public market by having some of that in the Haymarket hotel space retail, and let the public market get back to what it's supposed to be doing, what its mission is. And as somebody who lives here, I live very close to the hotel. I think it would be great to have a restaurant that opens up onto the greenway, because there's really nothing like that until you get to the Palm. And we have this beautiful thing in the city, and we really don't experience it the way we should. So to say that nobody in the North End wants a restaurant or some food service, I think that's incorrect.
What do you think, Bob?
Well, the right thing. as a resident and as one of the people who are going to wake up every morning and see this, I think it's fabulous. And I will be living in that building on 213 Hanover, Mother Anna's, okay? And when I wake up in the morning, that's going to be great to look at. I will be in the top of that building. Mother Anna's will be there forever, okay, as long as I'm alive. And I think it's a great project. And I understand, you know, having restaurants on the Greenway, I think it's just absolutely fabulous, okay? And I'm a traditionalist, okay? I believe in tradition, obviously with Mother Anna's. But to look at this here, I think they've blended it perfectly. And I think the pushcart vendors, all the work they've done with this company, from what I've seen, is paid off. And we're on the right track here. It may have to be fine-tuned, we have to tweak it here or there, but believe me, this is the way to go. This building is absolutely beautiful. And it's the right project for the right place.
It's important to remember all this feedback. It's still under review. You know, we'll work off the PDA guidelines and what the BRA's guidelines call for, but we want to hear how you all feel about it and what you desire to see there. We knew people would have different opinions. We'll keep working with the proponent on what it looks like going forward. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Richie Elaferis. I'm a former resident of the North End. I lived in downtown Boston and I worked in downtown Boston. I worked at the Omni Parker House for 40 years. I worked my way through college. I bought a house. I raised 2 kids. I'm still working there. I just want to say I'm fully in favor of the Haymarket project. When you have a union hotel, union workers, it helps the community. When you have a job with good wages and good benefits, you only need one job. You can spend time with your family. You can take them to soccer. You can help them with their homework. You can volunteer in the community. That's the type of jobs that we want in Boston. I'm a vice president of Local 26, and those are good jobs, and they will help the community of the North End, Everett, Somerville, every area, and that's the type of union jobs that we want to see in downtown Boston. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, Eamon.
Hi, Diane.
Diane Royal, resident of the North End. As you know, Eamon, I was very much opposed to this project. I grew up in the West End and had 2 uncles who made their living off the push carts at Haymarket. I've been shopping down there for over 65 years. Thank you for lowering the height of the building. That was the stickler that I had. Thank you for listening to the residents and to the businesses and to the public with all of our concerns. I know that you've been working with the Pushcart Association and there's still a few more things to iron out, and I'm sure that they will iron out and everybody can work together and live together happily. I'm very happy. Last night you told me you were preserving those beautiful metal decor in the asphalt by Hanover Street that depicts the fruits and vegetables in the market. Thank you for preserving that.
You're welcome.
And most importantly, I love the Haymarket sign. I think it's fabulous. It just brightens up that whole area. It reminds me of San Francisco and Ghirardelli Square and the Union Oyster House. So I hope the Haymarket sign stays. But thank you. It was a long haul for all of you, and I do appreciate all of the concessions that you made along the way to satisfy the neighborhood.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you. You've been involved
Yes.
for very long as well, and everyone has recognized that, and you were recognized as one of the more, significant people sticking at it. So I'm glad that we've been able to improve it with your comments and input. Look forward to getting it done together.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
My name's Ryle Rhodes. I'm with the Carpenters Local 33 in Boston. I'm highly behind this project, not for the easy reasons because of the jobs it will create, but I think it'll tie in the backside of Faneuil Hall into the North End, creating even more business for the local merchants. And even though I might not live in this neighborhood, I did go to school right next door. That school closed because of development, and 2 years later I went back there as a union carpenter, earned a paycheck from that school right there. They turned into condos. And I think this will help out the neighborhood. And hopefully, the people you have to take care of the most are the push cart people, and I think they're the number one. They come first. Thank you.
Thank you, I agree with that.
Is the hotel a union hotel?
We have signed a neutrality agreement with the Hotel Workers Union.
But the,
So
that
the-
means the future operator will be union run?
The permanent jobs in the hotel will likely be, and that's the determination of the employees, but we have signed a neutrality agreement with the Hotel Workers Union Local 26. And they're great jobs. These are permanent jobs, so they will likely be union hotel jobs, yeah.
On that same track, have you thought of future operators?
We've talked with a bunch of different operators. There's, every hotel brand and operator wants, to be part of this. It's such a great, exciting project. We really feel it's important to get through the community, through the entitlement process, and take that next step after we do that and select the operator. But the agreements we have with Local 26 are with ownership.
Is there anybody we haven't heard from yet that has a comment or a question?
I just want to reiterate on the issue of the sidewalks, that I don't
Thank you.
see
Good to
any
see you.
problem with any of the owners, abutting owners there, cooperating on the sidewalk. But it's not our PDA, it's not our project, and I don't think you should expect us to be putting any bills in relation to that. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to get much cooperation. The other thing that I would like to say is, I do think in the Market District that there is a huge need for a farmers co-op, which is quite different from the Boston Public Market and the push cart. A farmers co-op basically is a whole lot of farmers who exist who would sell their product into a co-op. And I think that really would be a huge help to the push carts, to the Boston Public Market. I'm just not really sure whether the space is big enough, and whether it configures right. But if it did, I think that would be a terrific tenant for the ground floor.
Take that into consideration.
I will also say, I do think this is a terrific project.
And I will say, you're one of the, property owners on the street. We're going to work together, and we can work it out. That confident. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Again, feel free to email me with any comments or questions. Hearing none now, I think we can break up. Please sign in and leave your email address if you'd like updates going forward from us. Thank you all.